Hey everybody, it's Detroit AllyCat. How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have never been on my channel, I do paranormal stuff, I do true crime, unboxings, weird things. But today is Spooky Saturday, so we are going to talk about paranormal things. So without further ado, let's get spooky. I decided that we were going to talk about something kind of different. Like, it's not really a haunting, it's not really... I'll just tell you about it. So it's one of the most famous magicians in the world. And I wouldn't even know if you should call him a magician. I think it's more of an occultist. His name is Aleister Crowley. And a lot of people know about Aleister Crowley, but they don't know, like, all the information about Aleister Crowley. And what's really cool is I thought it was gonna be like a quick, easy, like, video. I thought, you know, how in-depth could this man be? But wow. He is like he's really interesting, and I think you will like it. Come with me down the path of Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was considered an English occultist. There are people still to this day that consider him one of the world's greatest magicians, but I don't think he's a magician. I just don't. I have my own circus company, and I have magicians that work for me, and I just don't consider Aleister Crowley a magician. But an occultist, yes, very much so. I'll let you make that decision for yourself. He was into ceremonial magic. And I would just like to state for the record, if orgies or drug use bother you, you might not want to watch this video. I find it fascinating, and I think it's part of history, so we should know these things. But that's just me. Heads up, there are gonna be talks of orgies. Moving on, he was also a poet, a painter, a novelist, and a mountaineer, which I thought was really interesting. Like, how often do you hear people say that they're mountaineers? Mount St. Everest has changed that. Now Mount St. Everest has like kind of become like the Disneyland of mountains. Like, you pay like one of these Sherpas and they'll take you up there, but that's a whole nother story that I am definitely going to do one day, because that's like a whole thing. He founded something called Thelema. There is kind of like a little bit of like confusion to me. Like, is it Thelma? Is it, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I have come to the conclusion that it is Thelema. And I'm not going to call it a religion, because I don't think that he really felt like it was a religion. I think he thought it was like a way of living almost. That's just my personal opinion. He identified himself as a prophet. He felt that he was entrusted with guiding humanity into the Æon of Horus in the early 20th century. So he was really into like Egyptian gods, and I feel like a lot of the things that he talked about were very influenced by Egypt. He went to Egypt like quite a few times, and you're gonna see a little bit of it come out, but yeah, the Æon of Horus is definitely Egyptian inspired, which I love Egyptian stuff. I love Egyptian history. It's such a cool period in time, and it's so very mysterious. So of course, one of the most famous occultists in the world would be like into Egyptian stuff. He was born Edward Alexander Crowley in October 12th, 1875. He was born in a town called the Royal Leamington Spa. Now, I thought that was really strange, because like, to me, a spa is like a place where you go to get like cucumbers put on your eyes and you get a mani and pedi. But apparently this town was considered a spa because the water had like these healing properties to it. Now, this was 1875, so I don't know how they considered the water healing properties. I don't think they had microscopes back then, or maybe they did and they just weren't like as high-tech as they are now. But I guess they thought that this area, this town, was a very healing place and therapeutic, and so it was called Royal Leamington Spa. It was actually in an area called Worcestershire, England. I don't know if that's like how, like, you know, Hamtramck is in Detroit, which is in Michigan, which I think is kind of how that works. And if you're not from Michigan, Hamtramck's like this little town that's in this city that's in this state. So I'm feeling like this Royal Leamington Spa was like a little town which was in a city which was in a state, or it could have been a county. Aleister Crowley died December 1st, 1947. He died at the age of 72 years old. He died in Hastings, East Sussex, England. This part I found kind of interesting too. His resting place, which are his ashes, are in the Hamptons in New Jersey. Well, let's go through his life and talk about the things that he did and all of these things. You know, you see pictures of Aleister Crowley and they're like this crazy looking bald guy, and a lot of people didn't think he was attractive, but when he was younger in his 20s, he was cute. He looked crazy. Like, don't get me wrong. He had like a glint in his eye. But he was an attractive man in his 20s. He looked like a character in his older age, and I can appreciate some of the pictures that I've seen. And I will definitely post the pictures that I've seen of him. Aleister Crowley, he was born wealthy. This man had a lot of money. His eccentric lifestyle and his like education and all that was taken care of. And he kind of had like it's kind of like a sad story. His father actually had a brewery, and it was very like successful. So by the time like his father was in his 40s, he could retire and spend time with Alistair, but his father ended up dying of a very like young age, and it kind of affected Alistair really badly because he felt like his dad was his best friend and he bonded with his father. When his father passed away, he was stuck with his mother, and his mother was like super Christian. Like she was very religious. It's like this fundamental sect of Christianity, and every time I hear the word fundamental in some kind of religion, it means like extremely strict, like back to the basics. But regardless, his mother did not like how eccentric, how wild he was, and she used to call him the Beast. And that is where Aleister Crowley got his nickname, the Beast. And instead of like not liking it because that's what his mother called him, he actually like reveled in being called the Beast. Like he just loved that his mother thought he was the Beast, and he kept that nickname, and he ended up telling people he was the Beast. He loved being called the Beast. He thought that was like the greatest thing ever. Let's talk about his education. So you know he's wealthy, and he took full advantage of his wealth, and he went to a couple different colleges, and these are like really good colleges. Not that I think that they had little tiny community colleges back in the day, but he went to Malvern College, Tonbridge College, and Eastbourne College. And he had two spouses. His first spouse was Edith Rose Kelly, and he was married to her from 1903 and divorced her in 1909. And then his second spouse was Maria Teresa Sanchez, and he married her in 1929. And I could find nothing on his divorce with her, so I'm gonna assume she stayed married to him to the end. But here's something that you need to know about Aleister Crowley. Like, he loved falling in love. Like that moment that you first meet somebody and you have like those butterflies in your stomach and you're like, oh, you would like do anything for them, like irrational stuff for them. That is the feeling that Aleister Crowley just like really enjoyed. And he had many lovers, and he fell in love a lot. And like as soon as that like feeling of like love like left, like he would just move on. And I believe this had a lot to do with like his religion and how he felt like, you know, sex magic could actually help spells and invoke things, and I just feel like he felt like that feeling of love was power, and he absolutely loved that feeling. Like I said, he had a lot of lovers, so he had 5 children. He was known to pursue Western esotericism. Esoteric is like, I've always heard this word, but I like really didn't care to know what it was because I just thought it was like a pompous word. So I had to look it up. Some of you might pretend that you know what it is, or maybe some of you actually do know what it is. However, I feel like Aleister Crowley like just loved esoteric because it's like all in his life. Esoteric is like a secret society of beliefs and like interconnection. It's not well known. It can mean a bunch of different things, but pretty much it means something that is not well known, is kind of secret. I guess like the easy way for me to say it is like it's on the down low. I mean, I'm sure that's like a very crude way of explaining esoteric, but you know, that's how I am. I like to break everything down, so I'm gonna do that for you. Yes, that is what Aleister Crowley wanted to do. He wanted to pursue Western esotericism. There was a rumor that he was a spy for the British intelligence agency, and I would not be surprised if Aleister Crowley did not start that rumor himself, because that's just the kind of person he was. But yes, there was talk that he was a spy. And I kind of don't think so, but maybe, you know, maybe he was really interesting. In 1898, he joined the Esoteric Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, where he was trained in ceremonial magic. Let's talk about ceremonial magic. So when you talk about magic, you can have your own beliefs on magic, and then you have people that actually have a very, this is how it's done. So to me, ceremonial magic would be like, you know, doing a ritual and a ceremony in front of a lot of people, but that's not kind of what his ceremonial magic was. It was like he would make a circle and he would have these people around him, and instead of like bringing the power out, he would draw the power in and he would connect with everybody, and it was like a whole little process. And he was very into ceremonial magic, and not only was he into ceremonial magic, but he created his own ceremonial magic, and he wrote books about the ceremonial magic, and those books, you can find them still to this day, and a lot of people actually like still read them, believe them, follow them, think that Aleister Crowley really was a prophet. Was he a prophet? I don't know. You know, some of the things that he had to say they make a lot of sense, to be honest. He studied Hindu and Buddhism, which is very cool, to be honest. He married Rose Edith Kelly. They honeymoon in Cairo, Egypt, and when they went to Cairo, Egypt, this is where he claimed to make contact with an entity called Ayahuasca. I really hope I'm saying that right. And this is where my belief is that Alistair was kind of eccentric. I don't know, maybe an Egyptian entity did come to him. I think that would be awesome if it did. But he thought that this Egyptian entity attached itself to him, and it basically told him all of these things that he had to tell humanity, and it showed him the knowledge of the Kabbalah, which, how very relevant, because all you've heard in 2020 was the Kabbalah. But yes, it showed him the knowledge of the Kabbalah. The ayahuasca, the entity, I know I'm saying it wrong, so if somebody out there knows what the ayahuasca is properly said, please don't make me feel like an idiot, and please just let me know in the comments how you say ayahuasca. The ayahuasca provided him with the Book of Law. I know a lot of you have had to hear about that. It's a sacred text for Thelema. Aleister Crowley's like biggest thing was his, I guess, it's not really, I don't want to call it a saying, but it was like a saying. It was his belief. It was his motto, if you will. Do what thou wilt. And basically that just means like, live it up, I guess. That's a horrible way of explaining it, but it's like, live for yourself. Don't try to put all these rules on you about, you know, it's kind of deep. It seems like it's not deep, but it is deep. Here's the thing. No, I'm like so bad at this. I'm all over the place. A lot of people believe that Satanists are like, hail Satan. But that's not true, because Satanists don't believe in Satan. Like, they don't believe in God. They believe in themselves. And they believe that they are here right now in this moment and they need to be present. And that's like where a lot of the controversy comes from, is like, a lot of people believe that Satanists are these like evil people running around chopping off cats' heads and, you know, doing all these things, when that's just simply not the truth. I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there that do some really sick, weird stuff, but for the most part, like, Satanists are just into experiencing everything to the fullest and enjoying life. Which, honestly, you can't tell me that that's not a bad way to look at life. And this is how Aleister Crowley viewed life. He wanted to experience life to the fullest. Now, a lot of people think that Aleister Crowley was a Satanist, but he proclaimed he wasn't a Satanist, which gets really confusing, because there have been like quotes where he was like, hail Satan, or he was known as the Beast of 666. But here's something you have to realize about Aleister Crowley. For all the education that he had, he was very into hallucinogenics and opioids, especially heroin and opium. He was a little out there, you know. Sometimes he just felt a certain way and he just let that be. He went with that moment, and that was kind of the way that he lived. Was he a Satanist? No, I don't think he was. But do I believe he had a lot of the belief systems that modern day Satanists have here? Yes, I do. It's very, very similar, and a lot of the things that I read about Aleister Crowley just really made me feel like, you know, Satanist vibes. Another thing that Aleister Crowley was like really big on, which is kind of like what I just talked about, it was align yourself with the true you, which is, don't try to be something you're not just to impress everybody else. Be yourself. Like, be who you really are. If you want to have sex with like 30 people, do it. If you want to have heroin, do it. Like, this is the way he believed in things. And I'm not saying you have to agree with him. I'm just telling you the facts. This is how he believed. And that was kind of his thing. He went to Algeria in 1912, where he initiated into another esoteric order. This was the German-based Ordo Templi Orientis. Yes, I probably destroyed that pronunciation. But Crowley spent the First World War in the US, where he took up painting. In 1920, he made a commune called the Abbey of Thelema, and this he actually did in, let's just say, in Sicily, okay? He did this in Sicily. He moved to Sicily and he created the commune Abbey of Thelema. Now, I don't really want to get into too much, like, there's so much to talk about with this man. We could make this like a five-hour docu-series if we wanted to, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to briefly touch on a lot of his life. I believe that this commune of the Abbey of Thelema in Sicily, this is where a lot of his sex magic happened, a lot of his ceremonial magic happened, orgies, like, that's what he liked to do. Like, do some drugs, get naked, make a circle, and like try to invoke his entity to give him wisdom. I mean, it could be worse, right? I mean, I'd like to see that personally. He promoted Thelema until his death. He was very serious about his Thelema. He led a libertine lifestyle, which I am totally understanding of, because I consider myself a libertarian, which basically means I feel like people just need to stay out of my business, especially the government. Yes, I'm a libertarian. I feel like I should be allowed to do what I want as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. And I feel like Aleister Crowley was the same way. You know, he felt like if he wasn't hurting anybody, that people need to stay out of his business. As I said, he was a recreational drug user. He liked to experiment with all the drugs. His two favorite drugs were heroin and cocaine. He was bisexual, and he was a social critic, which... that's cute, right? You know, he like basically wanted to tell everybody what they were doing and how it was wrong, which I would have listened to him. I would have enjoyed hearing what he had to say. The name The Beast came from his mother, like I said, and it became a very big nickname among his followers, and that's what they called him, is The Beast. He was known for enjoying women, a lot of women and men and orgies, but he really liked prostitutes. He felt like, you know, he should be allowed to enjoy prostitutes, and he had lots of prostitute friends that he gave quite a bunch of business to, and he wanted to make sure they were taken care of, so they gave him syphilis back. And yeah, he had syphilis, and he also had malaria, and he got through that. He like made it through. I thought that syphilis was a death sentence personally, but somehow it didn't do that to Alistair. He went to Russia in 1897, and he went there on a mission to learn Russian and become a diplomat, which I can only imagine what it was like to see Aleister Crowley arrive in the USSR and like, you know, I'm here to be a diplomat. I really enjoyed learning about Alistair, I gotta be honest. He was an adventurous man. The Russian people thought the Order of the Golden Dawn was a bit too much, and they politely asked him to leave. He was even rumored to be a Freemason at one time. He had an affair with a woman named Mary Alice Rogers, and he really fell in love with her, and he wrote her a series of poems published as Alice, an Adultery, in 1903. How would you like to have an affair and have the person you had an affair with write a book of poems called With Your Name and the Adultery? He did Raja Yoga, but while he was in India learning Raja Yoga, that's actually where he contracted malaria. Then he went to Paris, and that's actually where he met Rose Edith Kelly. Rose Edith Kelly, she was like already set up to marry somebody else, and she did not want to marry this person. Alistair decided that he was gonna go ahead and marry her and save her from this arranged marriage, which Rose Edith Kelly's family was not too happy about. But upon marrying her, he actually fell in love with her, and he felt like she was his muse. While he was with Rose Edith Kelly, he did a lot of heroin and cocaine. They had a lot of sex magic they did together. They were actually deported from France for the same reason that Russia asked him to leave. He was a bit too much for them. In 1930, he moved to Berlin, where he took Berthe Busch as his lover, and they were known to have a violent relationship. I guess they like beat each other a lot, which I didn't really read a lot about Alistair and abuse in his relationship, so I'm kind of thinking this was like a thing that these two did, and they were just kind of like toxic for each other. But it was known that they, you know, they had violence in their relationship. He ended up suing a woman called Nina Hammett for libel because she wrote the Book of the Laughing Torso. I guess they talked about Alistair in this book and his occult and kind of made fun of him and shamed him, so he took it to court. He ended up losing in court, and because of this, he had spent a lot of money. In 1935, he became bankrupt. A lot of his supporters started giving him donations, and he survived off of these donations, and that's how he continued his lifestyle. He met Deidre Patricia Doherty, and she offered to have his child. She was like, I want to have your baby. And he was like, yeah, I think you should have my baby. He had his baby with her, and they named him Randall Gear, but Alistair nicknamed him Aleister Ataturk. He died in a car accident in 2002 at 65. Do you guys not think that that's crazy that Aleister Crowley's son lived all the way to 2002 and ended up dying in a car accident? I just think that that's crazy, because, like, I mean, that's Aleister Crowley's son. Like, Ozzy Osbourne made a song about Aleister Crowley. Do you guys want to hear me sing it? Mr. Crowley. Wah, 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 wah. Alright, I'll stop. This is something that Aleister Crowley liked to do, is he used to like to have curry parties where he would cook Indian food, and it would be like really spicy, and that's kind of like, he loved to do that. He published a lot of books, but the main books that he did publish was the Book of Law, Volume 1, 2, and 3. I have not read them. I have them here at the house, but I have not read them. I'm going to check them out, because Alistair has earned a place in my heart with his weirdness. He decided that he was going to ask Hitler if he wanted to join the occult of Thelema. And Hitler was like, no, I'm good. And I guess Alistair was kind of upset about that. And so he said that Hitler was a dark magician, a black magician that did black magic. The Second World War, he offered his services to the Naval Intelligence Division. He wanted to be a spy for them. I guess he was kind of angry at Hitler for denying his Thelema-ism. They declined his services, which, you know, in 1940, he had asthma prior, but in 1940, his asthma started getting really bad. And at this time, he made his own tarot deck, which I believe his tarot deck is still in print to this day. I think it's in my house somewhere. Yes. We do have the tarot deck. Here it comes. Yeah. My husband is very into the occult. He's more versed in this than me. So I'm going to show you his tarot deck that Aleister Crowley has. So here is the Aleister Crowley tarot deck. We're going to put it right side up for you, because you probably want to see it. Yes. So there it is. I wish I would have had this prepared, but let's look at a couple of the cards. This is the back of the deck. You can just tell straight up that it's Aleister's. Like, look at the card. Definitely got that Egyptian vibe going on. They're very beautiful. On the back of the card, it tells you exactly whose paintings these are. I'm sure that they're great people, but this is Aleister Crowley's deck. We have it here at the house. Crowley moved to Sussex and met Gerald Gardner, the founder of Gardnerian Wicca. Let's just say Wicca. No, because there's like so many Wiccas. But Gardnerian Wicca. And something that I did not know, believe it or not, I thought that like Wicca was like this earth happy little like fairy magic. Nope. They were like deep into sex magic and like ceremonial magic, and like that's like a big thing in Wicca. I didn't know that. On December 1st, 1947, unfortunately, Aleister Crowley died at the Netherlands. He died of chronic bronchitis that was aggravated by pleurisy. Now, what I think is really crazy is that the man had syphilis and malaria and survived, but he died of bronchitis. Just showing you what those times were like. And pleurisy is awful. Like it's like fluid around your lungs. It's really painful. I personally have had it. I never want to have it again. And I just want to talk about a couple other things to make mention before we stop with Aleister Crowley. When he had his funeral, which you would have thought because of how much he did in his life, there would have been like hundreds of people, right? Nope, there were only a dozen people that attended his funeral. He also was known to spell magic, M-A-G-I-C-K, not the other way. That magic was spelled that way because it was archaic spelling. Archaic. And he was the inventor of the hexagram, which is a 6-pointed star, and you have to like make the star without lifting up your like pencil, whatever you draw. I don't know why. It's some magical thing. But yes, he created the hexagram. It does not look like the Star of David. It looks like the Star Trek symbol, like 2 different ways. I know all the Aleister Crowleyans out there right now are wincing in pain as I try to explain this. But this is what it looked like, and I'll post a picture of it as well. As I always said, sexuality played an important role in Crowley's life. He believed in 3 forms of sex magic: antoratic, homosexual, and heterosexual. For you guys that are wondering, Alistair, when he had homosexual sex, he liked to be the receiver, if you know what I mean. A lot of people thought that was because he was a sadomasochist and he enjoyed that. Crowley considered sex as a sacrament with the consumption. This is gonna get kind of gross. I mean, maybe not to you, who knows. He considered the consumption of sexual fluids a Eucharist. He liked to make cakes of light. These were biscuits of menstrual fluid, semen, and vaginal fluid, and then he would eat it. Yum. Crowley did not consider himself a Satanist, which is what I said. He didn't believe in Satan, but called himself the Beast 666. He said, now this is like the part that I just want to bring up. He believed that ayahuasca, the entity that attached himself to him in Egypt, he believed that was the devil. So he didn't believe in the devil, but ayahuasca was the devil. See, this is where like hallucinogenics and opioids and all this stuff like kind of make things confusing. He was known for every Christmas to send out his anti-Christmas cards to his friends. And he was described as a self-indulgent, flamboyant young man that could be arrogant and cruel. He had a tendency to quarrel savagely. Crowley advocated for sexual freedom from both men and women, which, you know, you gotta give the man props. Way ahead of his time. Crowley remains an influential figure to this day in the occultist and popular pop culture. Thelema grew after his death and is still being practiced to this day. That is my spooky Saturday for you. That was a lot of information. If you sat there and watched all of this, then congratulations. Thank you for watching it. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning about Aleister Crowley. Like, how fun of a guy is this? Like, okay, can you imagine Russia in 1920 and Aleister Crowley coming over there and like with his cult members, like, we're here and Alistair wants to be a diplomat? That's Aleister Crowley, the legend, the man, the occultist, the person that like caused all the talk and drama. I would have loved to go to one of his ceremonial things, to be honest with you, because that would have been like just crazy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my channel, please leave a like. Think about subscribing. Join my 10 other subscribers and become a Detroit AllyCatier. I don't know what that is, but thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, stay safe and stay spooky. And do what thou will. Remember that.